What's going on? Yeah, this is part two of Canaan in the Phoenician thing. So, like I said in part one, we're going to continue what's going to happen. Let me see something real quick. We're gonna get up in this and let's get up and popping. So, as we can see in here, and I think I got another stream at 9 o'clock. I'm gonna knock this out as I can. So I'm gonna do a part two of embracing independent thinking. I want to expound on the day. Shouts out to Rashawn. He inspired me to do another stream. I'm gonna do it at night because I know a lot of people ain't streaming. They doing a little things, but I'm gonna get to this part. This is part two. When we last left Canaan, the Phoenician kingdom of Tyre was made an ally through the marriage of Omri's and son of Ahab to the Tyrian princess Jezebel. The black obelisk of Salmanasar III, reigned in 858, 824 BCE, is a black limestone-based relief sculpture from Nimrod, ancient Kahu in North Iraq. It is currently displayed in the British Museum, but in the most complete Assyrian obelisk yet discovered in his historical significance because it displays the earliest ancient depiction of an Israelite. It was erect in Assyria as a public monument in 825 BCE, which was during a time of civil war. The obelisk was discovered by an archaeologist, Sir Henry Layard, in 1846. The obelisk features 20 reliefs, 5 on each side. They depict 5 different subdued kings, bring tribute and prostrating before the Assyrian king of Salmanasar III. And here's the text for y'all. So Black Salmanasar III, if you want to see, and if y'all want to see the text, I'm gonna put this in the link in the chat. So live chat, and let y'all bite on that information. But yeah, I'm just gonna put this out here because I know people is busy on the live stream and on pace, and that's the thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're gonna do it. So what we're gonna get into is part two of the situation. Okay. However, the estimated of the temple of the pagan of god of Baal, one of the main Canaanite gods for Jezebel's use, and Jezebel's attempts to spread the cult of Baal aroused great opposition on the part of the zealous Yahwehs, or Yahweh, the Hebrew name of the god. That's what they call it, Yahweh. Yeah, that's an idol. For the idol worshippers among the common people, they are also resentment at the despotic manner of Ahab's rule, which was though to have been instigated by Jezebel. But she and her cult were challenged by the prophet of Elijah. One of Elijah's disciples, Elisha, organized the slaughter of Jezebel, Ahab, and the whole royal family, as well as the worshippers of Baal. This put a stop to the Baalist threat. Jehu, Elisha's co-conspirator and Joram's general who had led this massacre, became the king and established dynasty that lasted among a century, 842, 745 BCE, the longest in the history of Israel. Beyond his bloody coup d'etat, little is known of the events of Jehu's reign. He was hard pressed by the predations of Hazael, the king of the Armenians, who said to have defeated his army. Throughout all the territories of Israel beyond the Jordan River, in the lands of Gilead and Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh. This perhaps would explain why Jehu is offering tribute to Salmanasar III on his black obelisk, where his name appears as Amma, U, A, Amor, Amun, Elamur, Re, Ior. Jehu, son of Amori. It is though that Jehu was encouraging an enemy of the Armenians into his friend. But in the Assyrian documents, he is simply referred to as Jehu, son of Omri. That is Jehu, the house of Omri, as an Assyrian name for the kingdom of Israel. Yeah. So you know what that is. An Assyrian king, Shalmaneser. You see him right here, the third. And he's mentioned in scripture. The following four pictures are of an Israelite part of the Black Obelisk. Here's the Israelite post. And the Assyrian king Shalmaneser, 853 BCE, that's mentioned in scripture. King Jehu of Israel leads the procession, bring tribute to the Assyrian king. Yes. And the obelisk, Zoroastrianism. Yeah, you see it. Yeah, same thing. That's on the obelisk if you see. Interesting. Meanwhile, in Judah, the Baal cult introduced by Atalah, who was the queen of the mother and effect ruler for the time, was suppressed by a revolt led by the chief priest. Atalah was killed, and her grandson um, Joash was made king. In the following period, Judah and Israel had alternating relations of conflict and enmity, and were both involved in an alternate expansion, loss of power, in their relations with the neighboring states. Armenians of Damascus were the main enemy. Damascus annexed much of Israel's territory and exercised suzerainty over the rest. They also have a heavy tribute from Judah, and however, under the Jeroboam II, 783, 741 BCE, in Israel, and Uzziah, Azariah, or Azariah, 783 and 742 BCE in Judah, both of whom had a long reigns at the same time. The two kingdoms cooperated to achieve a period of prosperity, tranquility, unknown since Solomon's reign. Around the same time. That's about right. But the threat of the rising of the Assyrian Empire under the Tiglath-Pileser III soon reversed this situation. In 734 BCE, Tiglath-Pileser invaded southern Syria and the Philistine territories in Canaan, going as far as the Egyptian border. The Assyrian scripture from the Wikipedia, the Turks, I'm not going to read all that. So, the ISIS and all that, but I'm going to read this part. The Assyrian king, here you go, the king right here, in a segment cut from one of the stone panels decorating his central place at Kaluhu. Here he goes right here. That's the king I'm talking about, the Assyrian king. And they did damage. Yeah, they did damage. So we got this right here in Canaan number 5. So Damascus, Israel, and tried organized the resistance against him, and to this end they marched against Judah to force its participation in the fight against Assyria. The Judite king Ahaz, 735-720 BCE, instead of called on the Assyria for protection. In 733, Tiglath-Pileser devastated Israel and forced it to surrender large territories. Captives were taken to the tribute had to be paid. In 732, he advanced upon Damascus, first devastating the gardens outside the city, and then conquering the capital and killing the king, whom he replaced with a governor. Okay. With their belongings slung over their shoulders, Hebrew captives are being driven out of Astaroth or Asaroth by Assyrian warriors. Relief from Nimrod, time of Tiglath-Pileser III, 8th century BCE. Let's see this. In 721 BCE, the Assyrian king Sargon II laid a protracted siege on the Israeli city of Samaria. After Samaria fell, the Sumerian upper class was deported to Assyria and Babylon. Samaria was repopulated. The Assyrian and Babylonians. Assyrian king Sargon II. Meanwhile, Judah became a vassal state of Assyria. In about 721 BCE, after the abortive revolt against the Assyrian rule by King Hosea, what was left of the Hebrew state of Israel was annexed outright by the Assyria. and thus became an Assyrian province. As was the custom of Assyria, Israel's elite citizens, among the nearly 30,000 people, according to Assyrian figures, were deported to Mesopotamia and Media, Iran, and new settlers were imported from other lands. Thus, the northern kingdom of Israel ceased to exist. Assyrian and later Babylonian rule left the kingdom of Judah, the sole heir to the past glories of David and Solomon. King Hezekiah, 715 and 686 BCE. I'll say BCE. Lured by promise of the Egyptian aid, attempt to resist Assyria, but he was defeated and he compelled to pay crushing tribute. It was probably only the timely intervention of an epidemic which had decimated the Assyrian army of the king Sennacherib that saved Judah from the total devastation. Here's the below. Close-up larger relief depicting the Assyrian king Sennacherib's attack and conquest of the Judea city of Lachish in 701 BCE, British Museum, London, and all. Here we go. Let me show you pictures of the Assyrian relief. You see it right here. Let me show you those people. Yeah, man. Left side, part of the large depicting the Assyrian year's attack. Impalement of Judeans. Yeah, it was killing them. Yeah. Later Assyrian king Esarhaddon campaign in Canaan. Scythian king Abdi Maliki, who had ridden against the Assyrian king, was defeated in 677 BCE and beheaded. The town of Scythian was destroyed and rebuilt as Kar Ashur Aha Edini, the harbor of Esarhaddon, and the population was deported to Assyria and shared the plunder went to Baal the first. But the king of the rival city, Tyre, who himself an Assyrian puppet, the partly conserved to the text of the treaty with Tyre. And the mentions of the kings, Judah, Edom, Moab, Gaza, Ashkelon, Erechon, Babylos, Arvad, and Semizes, Maruna, and Ammon, and Ashdod. The 10 kings from the coast of the sea, the 10 kings from the middle of the sea, usually identified with Cyprus as Assyrians' allies. And that's what they were. It was only the eloquent guidance of the Isaiah that restored the moral of the people. Even with the weakness of Hezekiah, son of Manasseh, did not bring about complete ruin. Another strong king, Josiah, 640 to 609 BCE, arose in the time to restore the abiding fortunes of Judah, but only for a few years. During this time, much of the ancient territory of the united Israel was brought back under the rule of the dynasty. By now, Assyria was rapidly declining in power, and in 612 BCE, its hated capital, Nineveh, was destroyed by the Medes. And here's pictures of that. So this is number 5. If y'all haven't seen the other part of the stream, check out part 1 of Canaan. I want to give you a link so y'all can read this for yourself. We're just gonna keep it simple. And I know people is looking for the late stream later. I think it's at 9. We'll see, because I don't know how long this is gonna be. So if you want to discuss anything, I got time. So yeah, I got time. So we're going to go with number 6. We're going to deal with Canaan today. Modern Palestine, Israel, and Lebanon. As sometimes happen in order to maintain logical flow in another section, we have to move far ahead of time. Having done just that, let's now move back in time. When last we left Canaan, Josiah was the king. He had successfully retaken the territory from the Assyrians, who were rapidly declining in power, and their hated capital, Nevaeh, was destroyed by the Medes. But Josiah's successful rebellion ended when he fell into battle against a pharaoh, Neku II, the 26th dynasty of Egypt, who was intended on reestablishing Egyptian dominance in Canaan. After Assyria declined at the same time, the Chaldean kings of Babylonia were rapidly gaining strength. The king Nabopolassar of Babylon and King Cyaxares of Media divided the old Assyrian Empire between themselves. After Nabopolassar's death, his son Nebuchadnezzar II later gained control of the Syria and Canaan in swift of campaigns. King Nebuchadnezzar II. Yeah, I talk about him in my pre-records. Chaldeans close up. The Necho Pharaoh Neku II. The story of Daniel. My version of Daniel, he already died a long time ago. Elder Young One broke it down with it years ago. So, but in the Bible, we're gonna read this just for now. That's a whole nother topic about the book of Daniel, because the original Daniel, he died before all this happened. But this, they try to say there's no Daniel. That I've heard stories, people say that, but I'm gonna read this anyway. Daniel, meaning in Hebrew, God is my judge, is the protagonist of the book of Daniel of the Hebrew Bible. In the narrative, when Daniel was a young man, he was taken into the Babylonian captivity, where he was educated in Chaldean thought. However, he never converted to Neo-Babylonian ways. By divine wisdom from his God, they try to say Yahweh, but it's Yahweh, he interrupted the dreams and visions of kings, thus becoming a prominent figure in the court of Babylon. Okay, the court of Babylon. Eventually, he had apocalyptic visions his own, and they have been interrupted as the four monarchs. And sometimes most famous accounts of Daniel are Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and the writing on the wall, and Daniel in the lion's den. In the third year of the reign of Joachim in 606 BCE, but Daniel and his friends Hananiah and Mishael and Azariah were among the young Hebrew nobility and carried off off to Babylon to the four were chosen for their intellect and the beauty to be trained in advisors of the Babylonian court. Daniel was given in the name and Belteshazzar and the prince of Baal, and Baal protect the king, and not to be confused with the Neo-Babylonian king Belteshazzar. Hananiah and Mishael and Azariah were given the Babylonian names Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, respectively. Okay, I'll be right back. Just give me about 2 minutes and I'll be back. Hold on. All right, I'm back. Let me see. Let's go again. Nebuchadnezzar's madness. In the narrative of Daniel chapter 2, it is the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, and the king is distressed by his dreams. Nebuchadnezzar recounts a dream of a huge tree which is suddenly cut down at the command of heavenly messenger. Daniel is summoned and interrupts the dream, but the tree is Nebuchadnezzar himself, who for 7 years will lose his mind and become like a wild beast. All this time comes to pass until at the end of the specific time, Nebuchadnezzar acknowledged that the heavens rule and his kingdom, insanity, are restored, and his kingdom is restored to him. Daniel in the lion's den. The story of Daniel in the lion's den is found in the 6th chapter of the book of Daniel in the Hebrew Bible, and the lesser known story of Baal and the dragon. In the Greek versions, Daniel is official in the Persian Empire under King Darius. So they talk about King Darius and things like that. So King Darius did exist. It's about the empire. There's relics of him. Darius, at the instigation of his other officials, had made a decree: no one was offered to the prayer to any god or man except him for the period of the 30 days. Daniel continued to pray as way his habit, for he was arrested, thrown into the lion's den. However, he was unharmed, and after he was released the following morning, the people who had cajoled the king into making the decree, which was for the sole purpose of getting at Daniel, were to throw into the lion's den themselves. Yeah. Roman mosaic Daniel in the lion's den, 400, circa 400 years. Yeah. In the museum, Tunis. So you know how that goes. As we know, the ancient Canaan contained many people. The original people who moved into the north and became known as Phoenicians. Phoenicians bringing gifts for the Persian king Persepolis, relief 5th and century BC. And here we go. Here's another Philistine person, the Africans or Japhites or whatever you want to call them, mixed between the two. But it's interesting. They were Canaanites and Hebrews who lived in the middle, but we could never differentiate between the two. Well, you can. Canaanites are Africans. They will be your what you say South Africans. They live around still today in certain deserts of Iraq. I can differentiate for this brother right here that put this information out. They also live in Lebanon. They also live in places that you don't see, but they're around. They're not our people. You got still people that look like that. Now the Hebrews, if you're talking about Yasharites or Zion people, they're scattered across the world. They did live in the desert. A lot of them dispersed across the globe when the world changed. At one time, we was on one side. So yes, we're those people because we got more like them in common if you think about it. But the Canaanites, they're African. They're different. They have a unique culture. We can't relate to them. We're similar, but we ain't the same. They get them mixed up. There is a differentiate. Egyptians, however, continued to intrigue in Canaan, whose native states were reportedly induced and joined anti-Babylon coalitions, all which collapsed of themselves, were crushed by the Chaldean armies. Jerusalem was twice besieged in 597 and again in 589 BCE. Finally, it's about 587, 586 BCE. It was stormed and destroyed. But the prophet of Jeremiah, see, they'll say prophet of Jeremiah in the English Bible, but in the Hebrew, his name is Jeremiah, who had foreseen this tragic end and who had repeatedly warned his people against their suicidal policy and died in Egypt. Yehuda, known as Judah, was devastated, almost depopulated with the most of its people and sent off to Mesopotamia. And here's Psalms. Psalms 137 tells the tale of the Hebrews and the Babylon. And saltier paintings below show us with the albino people ascension, the race of the Hebrews were changed over time, of course. In Psalms, King James Version, 137 to verse 1, by the rivers of Babylon they were sat down, yeah, we wept, and we remembered of Zion, And we hanged our harps, that's verse 2, and upon the widows in the midst of thereof. Verse 3, for they carry us captive, require us a song. They that wasted us require us mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. Verse 4, how shall we sing thy Lord? Song in a strange land. And here's verse 5. If I forgot thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. And here's verse 6. If I do not remember thee, I let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. And if I preferred not Jerusalem above my chief joy. Verse 7. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said it, raise it, even the foundations thereof. Verse 8. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happily shall be the reward of thee, as thou hast haste serve us. Verse 9. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. Dasheth thy little ones against the stones. Okay. Yeah. Places of, yeah, the same thing. The Phoenicia or Hebrews playing lyres. Yeah. There they go right here. So there you go right here. From the Bristol Pilastar, believed by the Byzantine Pilastar, written in 11th century in ancient Greek. Yeah. There you go. Chaldean survivors in a boat. David composing Psalms. They're showing him depiction. Yeah. Okay, this all changed with the victory accession of the Persian king Cyrus II, Cyrus the Great. After Cyrus had taken Babylon, he ordered that all the captives there to be free and to return to their homelands. This was to be financed by Cyrus. He ordered the Hebrews restored to Jerusalem and bade them to rebuild their temple. This period of peace lasted for almost 300 years, but then the Persian Empire was destroyed by the armies of Alexander the Great, Alexander of Macedonia, or they call it after Alexander the Great's conquest of Persia. Judas first came under the rule of the Ptolemies, Greek kings of Egypt, later under that of the Seleucids of Greeks of Mesopotamia. The opposition to the Seleucids' attempts to suppress the Hebrew ancestral faith led to be the rise of the family of the Hebrew leaders known as the Maccabees. That's also in the Apocrypha, by the way, if you can find about the Maccabees. They gradually drove the Seleucids from the country and set up the revived kingdom of Judea. Family disputes, however, led to the Roman intervention in 63 BCE. My fault. Intervention 63 BCE. Now, under the Roman control, Herod the Great was made king of Judea in 37 BCE, later of all of Canaan, 24 BCE. After Herod's death, the country was ruled alternately by Herod's direct descendants and by the Roman procurators as a result of the Hebrew revolt. And the broke out in 66 CE. The city of Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. But the city was destroyed by Titus Flavius. By Titus Flavius Vespasianus, 39 and 81 CE, commonly known as Titus. He was a Roman emperor from 79 to 81, a member of the Flavian dynasty. Titus succeeded his father Vespasian upon his death. Prior to becoming emperor, Titus gained renown as a military commander, serving under his father in Judea during the First Jewish-Roman War. But the campaign came to a brief halt with the death of the Emperor Nero in 68 CE, launching the Vespasian's bid for the imperial power during the year of the four emperors, when Vespasian was declared emperor on 1st of July 69 CE. Titus was left in charge of ending the Jewish rebellion. In 70 CE, he successfully laid siege to and destroyed the city of the Temple of Jerusalem. For this achievement, Titus was awarded a triumph. The Ark of Titus commemorates his victory. To this day, the Zealots who were a Hebrew sect, which opposed to the pagan rule of Rome and the polytheism that is professed, were an aggressive political party. Their concern for the national religious life of the Hebrew people led them to despise even the Hebrews who sought peace and consolidation with the Roman authorities. Some extremists among the Zealots turned to terrorism and assassination. They became known as Zarlikui, known as Sakari, the daggermen. They frequently public places with hidden daggers, ready to strike down personal friendly to Rome, and the first revolt against Rome, 6670 CE. But the Zealots played a leading role at the mountaintop fortress of the Masada, and they commit suicide rather than surrender the fortress in 73 CE. Okay. The Romans historian Cornelius Tacitus. Yeah, you can read that for yourselves. I'm not going to read that long read. That's a long read. I'll skim through it. And Christ and his disciples painted, of course. And they go in this Adora Europos. And let's get into this. Dura Europos was founded in 303 BCE by the Seleucids of the insurrection of the east-west trade route. The trade route along the Euphrates. The new city controlled the river crossing of the route between his newly found cities of Antioch, Seleucia on the Tigris. The traditional view of Dara Europos as the great carven city is becoming nuanced by the discoveries of logical made manufactures and traces of closest ties with Palmyra. During the later and 2nd century BCE, and it came under the Parthian control and it served as a frontier fortress of our Arsaid Parthian Empire. It had a multicultural population, as inscriptions in Greek, Latin, Aramaic, Hebrew, Syriac, Hattrian, Palmyrian, Middle Persian, and Saphitic Pahlavi testified. It was captured by the Romans in 165 and abandoned after Sasanian siege in 256 and 257. I believe it's CE or B. Yeah, I believe it's CE. After it was abandoned, it was discovered by sand and mud disappeared from sight. Dora Europos was a cosmopolitan society controlled by a tolerant Macedonian aristocracy. Yeah, Macedonian aristocracy descend from the original settlers. In the course of the evacuation, over 100 parchment and papyrus fragments and many inscriptions have revealed texts in the Greek and Latin. Latter include the Satyr Square, Palmyrian, Hebrew, Hattrian, Saphitic, and Pahlavi. The excavations reveal in temples of the Greek, Rome, and Palmyrian gods. They was the Mithraeum, as one would expect in the Roman military city. The Jewish synagogues located by the western wall between the towers 18 and 19, the last phase of which was dated by an Aramaic inscription to 244. It is the best preserved of many ancient synagogues of the era that have been uncovered by archaeologists. It was preserved, ironically, when it had to be infilled with the earth and strengthened the city of fortifications against a Sassanian assault in 256, I believe, BCE. It was discovered in 1932 by Clark Hopkins. I believe it's C. My fault, C. Clark Hopkins, who founded it, and it contained a forecourt and houses of assembly with the frieze coed and walls depicting the people and animals and the Torah shrine in the western wall facing Jerusalem. At the first time, it was mistaken for a Greek temple. The synagogue paintings in the earliest continuous, the surviving biblical narrative cycle are conserved at Damascus. So here we go right here. Moses leading the Exodus, showing the story of Dara Europos synagogue. 244 CE, like I thought. Okay, Damascus, Syria. They're showing pictures of him, burning bush. Yeah, Ezra reads the laws and all that. Yeah, the Byzantine Empire. We're gonna get into this and we're gonna wrap this up. We're gonna see. We might not wrap it up, but we're gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna see how many hours we in. Oh, damn, about 37 minutes. Okay, cool. We're gonna keep this intact. It's about 37 minutes. Yeah, so we got time, yo. Might talk about this. Hold on. This may go over. Okay. We're gonna talk about this because I know everybody is on par right now. Yeah. Byzantine was prominently the Greek-speaking continuation of the Roman Empire during the late antiquity and the Middle Ages. It is the capital city was Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, originally known as Byzantium. Initially, the eastern half of the Roman Empire, often called the Eastern Roman Empire in this context. It has survived the 5th century fall of the Western Roman Empire, continuing to exist for an additional 1,000 years until it fell to the Ottoman Turks in 1453. In 1453, yes, that would be like the 13th century at the time of the Renaissance period. Okay. During the most of its existence, the empire was the most powerful economic, cultural, and military force in Europe. Both Byzantine Empire and Eastern Roman Empire are historically terms applied in later centuries. Its citizens continue to refer to their empire as the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire. That's what they call it. And most people call it the Byzantine Empire. Yeah, Byzantium. The Byzantium Emperor Manuel I, Komnenos, and his second wife, Maria of Antioch, 1118 to 1180 CE, right? The Vatican Library. You can see that. All of the albino people migrating westward from Central Asia passed through the Byzantine territory and caused wars and conflicts over time. The only way that the Black Greeks of the Byzantine Empire could gain semblance of peace was to marry albino princesses, thus creating a nobility that had many mulattoes. Their art of often reflects this admixture. That's so true. The admixture. Yep, so true. The Byzantine Palaester, 11th century, the ancient Greek in the Palaester has 14 odds. Yeah, Psalm 151, Province Unknown. Yeah, King David. Yeah, his musicians. Yeah, and this is the picture right here. You can see, okay, Hebrew writings. One of the mysteries of the ancient Canaan is what happened to the ancient writings of the Hebrews. The Hebrews were very literate people who wrote on many subjects, yet today all that exists are the works of Josephus Flavius, who was a Hebrew trader named Joseph, who upon going over to the Romans and was made a general, given to the title Josephus Flavius. He subsequently commanded from Roman troops in putting down the Hebrew rebellion. Josephus, in his delusion, attempted to establish the greatness and antiquity of his people in the writing works, even after he had aided in their destruction. His and his works for a few authors is written around the time of the fall of Jerusalem in 70 CE, as all of this survives today. And certainly the history in replete with the instance of Khazar in Jewish texts. Some claim to be ancient, but being born in Europe. But what about the genuine ancient texts of the Hebrews? How it could be? That is self-written history of an entire nation with thousands of years ups and downs, and the people with arguably the most convoluted. Okay, I want to read that again. And the most people, arguably the most convoluted and eventually path to the nationhood, be lost to all mankind. Stranger still, in the absence of the original Septuagint, this is the work that was commissioned by the second Greek king of Egypt, Ptolemy II. In 332 BCE, Ptolemy arranged for his 6 translators from each of the 12 tribes of Israel to come to Egypt and translate the Hebrew scriptures into volume for his library in Alexandria. This book is known as the Septuagint, derived from the Latin word for 70. It is the first Bible that prototype for all the Bibles, including the Masoretic text, which began 600 CE and completed in 1000 CE. But the Bible of the Khazars or Jews, they will say, all remains the Septuagint today. Copies which have reinterpreted and reworked so often, the relationship between the original cannot be judged. Okay, hold on for a second. I'll be right back until I come back to see what's going on. All right. All right, I'm back. Okay. Where we at? Okay. Roman desire to destroy anything and everything that might offer the Hebrew moral support is well known. Their destruction of the Hebrew buildings and institutions is well documented. However, there is universal silence as to who destroyed all the Hebrew writings. Roman cultability for at least some of it was established with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which the Hebrews successfully hid for 2,000 years. In order to prevent them from being destroyed by the Romans also burned the writings of the Etruscans in Italy. That is so true. The Etruscans, yes, they did. Dead Sea Scrolls. The first Dead Sea Scroll discoveries occurred in 1947 in the Qumran village, situated about 20 miles east of Jerusalem on the northwest shore of the Dead Sea. Young Buddhim shepherd following the goat that had gone astray tossed a rock into one of the caves along to the sea cliffs and heard a crackling sound. The rock had hit a crematic pot containing leather and the papyrus scrolls that were later determined to be early 20th centuries old. 10 years and many searches later, even in caves around the Dead Sea were found to contain 10 of thousands of scroll fragments dating from approximately 300 BCE to 68 BCE. 68 CE, my fault. 300 BCE to 68 CE, and representing the estimate of 800 separate works. Psalm scrolls. Yep. These are scrolls. These are like biblical scrolls. Dead Sea Scrolls comprise a vast collection of Hebrew documents written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, encompassing many subjects and literary styles. They include manuscripts or fragments of every book in the Hebrew Bible, except the book of Esther, and all of them created nearly 1,000 years earlier than any previous known biblical manuscripts. The scrolls also contain the earliest existing biblical commentary on the book of Habakkuk and many other writings, among them religious works pertaining to Hebrew sects of the time. But were the Romans only were the only ones. It seems strange that the writings of the people who religious beliefs are the core of the great religions of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, could be made of non-existent without the clue as to how it happened, when it happened, or who did it. That the Romans would turn around and build their great religion of Catholicism upon the religious beliefs of the Hebrews and the people that utterly destroyed it is truly bizarre. Then there is also the curiosity of why the Vatican and the leadership in Israel will not allow the world to see the Dead Sea Scrolls, except for a few minor, uninterrupted pieces, which has been loaned out. As the surviving authentic Hebrew writings, they are invaluable for the learning of the true nature and the beliefs of the ancient Hebrews, as well as ascertaining in the fidelity of modern religious teachings. Clearly, the refusal of the Catholic Church and Israeli, yeah, we already know. Yeah, they ain't gonna, they got it hidden. And a lot of them got them from, it's in the Vatican vault. Some of them in the Vatican vault. So this is number 6. Okay, y'all can read this for yourself. This is number 6. I'm gonna put this in the live chat for y'all so y'all can read the rest of this. So basically, this is part 2, but we will continue with number 7. So we got time, and I'll explain the rest of the part. I could have did one whole part today, but I said no, I'm gonna put this in 2 parts. I decided to do this, and here we go. Last one in Canaan. This is a series that I ended, and this is a long read. This will go on. We'll see. Oh, we go here from here. Okay, let me set up the next. Let me see what I got time. How much time I got? I got 8:29 because I'm gonna end this stream and make it short because I got a stream talking about something important. Yeah, I'll get the independent thinking in a minute. That's at 9 o'clock. So we got absolutely time on this. So we're going to, yeah, we're gonna keep this in the flow. All right. Judea has been destroyed in 70 CE. City of Jerusalem has been destroyed. Not much left. This is canon number 7. Hebrew persecution in 130 CE. The Roman Emperor Hadrian planned a great temple to Zeus in the newly found city of Aelia Capitolina, which was one of the ruined sites of Jerusalem. Moreover, Hadrian had recently outlawed circumcision. These Romanizing acts, often the government, easily ignite the second great revolt of the Hebrews against the Rome. This was the Bar Kokhba, or Kokhba, the nickname for Simon, son of the star, revolt of 132 to 135 CE, which was led by Simon ben Koshbia. Or is it Koshbia? Yeah, always pronounced Koshbia. Okay, Koshbia, Kisipia, something like that. Simon, son of Koshbia. Once again, the Romans raised an enormous around to put down the revolt of Hadrian, personally led to the Roman attack the rebels. In the aftermath of the Bar Koshbia revolt, the Romans excluded Hebrews from the large area around Aelia, the Capitolina, which the Romans only inhabit. The province now hosted 2 legions and many auxiliary units, 2 colonies, and a new name, Syria Palestinia, to replace Judea, known as Palestine today, Palestinia. That's what they call it back then. But the center of the Hebrew settlement moved northward to the Galilee and Galantius. The number of the Hebrew communities elsewhere declined, and many once Hebrew towns became Roman or received large numbers of Roman inhabitants. The towns lost their old Hebrew names for new Roman names. Ban on circumcision remained in effect until the autonomous Pius, who recognized its dangerously provocative effect, revoked it. After 135 CE, Hebrews no longer had political, urban, or territorial institutions that could support another revolt, but they have managed to maintain national identity as a result of the growth of the rabbinic institutions and the parsonage and in the Galilee. Poverty and famine, plague and crime left the Hebrews too weak to amount any organized resistance. In the new state of the Syria-Palestinian thus became a good idea, less problematic for the Roman government than Judea has been. The government continued to permit the Hebrews certain religious freedoms, such as exemption from the imperial court. Gradually, the Roman governments permit that the Hebrews to recover certain of their communal rights, such as local courts, internal government, under the overall authority of the patriarch in the Tiberius. And the Samaritans sect practicing the strict, uncompromising versions of the Hebrew religion, far less well as the Romans took steps to prevent a resurgence of Samaritan nationalism by founding a pagan temple on Mount Gerizim, just south of Neapolis, and refused to make a concession of Samaritan religious practice. The conversion of the Emperor Constantine to the Christianity in about 300 CE, the set motion events that made of Palestine a major center of the Christian church. Before the 5th century CE, very few Christians lived in Palestine. The non-Hebrew regions of the coast of the south of Aelia, Capitolina, has several Roman and Greek Christian communities, and a few minimum Hebrew Christians live in such a Galilean in towns as Cephas and Capernaum. Okay, but at the beginning of the 4th century, then the government responded to the Roman Christian interest in the Holy Land by embarking on a massive program of the patronage, especially the church building, that was designed to encourage Christians to move to Palestine. There was also the imperial policy geared to encourage Hebrews to convert to the Christianity, this by offering the protection and rewards. As a result of Christian settlement in the vicinity of Nazareth and Capernaum and Tapaka in the regions of Galilee, loss of the Hebrew majority by 400 CE, and there were 96 Christian communities in Palestine. But the sack of Rome in 410 CE caused a new round of migration to the Palestine as a group of aristocratic Romans responded to Jerome's invention to settle in Aelia Capitolina and Bethlehem. Jerome was a Caucasian born in Stridon in the city modern Croatia. He was probably of a Turkish, Khazar ethnic. He's a Turkish person. What you call Khazars. He was later canonized as a saint by the Catholic Church. In addition, of numerous Christians came to Palestine, not to set, but to visit the holy sites on pilgrimage, and to scour the land for the relics and take home. On the other hand, the Hebrew population saw the constant and precipitous drop that lasts for centuries. In the 2nd century, after the Bar Kashiba revolt, some 200 Hebrew communities flourished in Palestine. But by the time of the Arab conquest in the late 630s CE, we know of a fewer than 50, except of the towns of Tiberias and Cephas, and in the regions of the east and the Sea of Galilee, and the Hebrews had become a minority in their own country. The Christian Hebrew leadership had encouraged their followers to have nothing to do with each other. Most Christian Hebrew exchanges took form of vigorous attacks on the opinions and principles of each other. Now, after the conversion of Constantine, Christians found themselves in a position not merely to keep themselves separate from contamination by Judaism, but to actively suppress it. The Roman emperors codified the separation of the two religions, forbidding intermarriage and conversions for Christianity to Judaism. However, the Hebrew converts to Christianity receives protection from Hebrew retribution. Increasingly, the Hebrews lost civil status, and the imperial legislation labeled Judaism a wild and nefarious sect. Until about 500 CE, the Roman emperors regularly reaffirmed that the Hebrews' right to be free, exercise their religion, but it became increasingly difficult to control violence against the Hebrews and their property. Okay, so we're going to get into that. And their property. The ascension of the Roman Empire, Justinian in 527 CE initiated the last great phase of the Roman persecution of the Hebrews. The new emperor redefined the heretics to include the Hebrews and and excluded them from the military and civilian offices. They have never served in the army, but now could not even serve even in a local municipal government. But the leadership of the last Hebrew cities, Tiberias and Sepphoris, passed into Greek and Roman hands. Justinian dealt in a further blow to the Hebrews, and when the new compilations of Roman law, the Codex and Insinuous, omitted the ancient law declaring Judaism a legitimate religion, but began to attack Hebrew religious practice and forced to baptism. Yeah. Greek or Phoenician female mask. Mosea, Sicily, 550 CE. That's a mask. Okay. So this is interesting history right here. Early Christianity. If you want to talk about things like this, if you want to talk about early Christianity and all that stuff, y'all can read this for yourselves. I'm going to put this in the link chat. I know it's time to read. I might have to skim through, but we'll see. We'll see in the moments in here. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to get this out of the way. And let's go put the link in here. Yeah, this is not going to be an open chat because I've got another stream coming up. So y'all can read this for yourselves. And I'll give you the whole link of this too as well. Hold on. And voila. Y'all can read this on your own time. Let me get to the point, get to the meat, get to the meat, get to the meat. Because what I'm going to do is we're going to just come in here and do our thing. You know what I mean? I'm just going to be on fire right now. Let's see. Some images of the first Christians. Yeah. Meanwhile, the period revealing the resistance of Samaritans. Let's see what we got. How much time we got? Oh, God, it's almost an hour. Good. Yeah, good. Samaritans are the sect and the strict and uncompromising versions of the Hebrew religion. We're in the meat, y'all. We're in the meat of it. My head is swirling. Woo! This is good shit. They have never received any privileges that Romans afford to more liberal Hebrews. They were often to circumcise their children since the 2nd century, but forced to sacrifice to pagan gods during the Tetrarchy. Now they were suffering under the Christian Empire, even greater oppression than the Hebrews. The Samaritans revolt against the Emperor Zeno in 484 CE. The Roman government put them down ruthlessly and built a Christian church on their holy mountain, Mount Gershom, and near Neapolis, again in 529 CE. But they revolt after Justine ordered the destruction of their synagogues. And after they restored it, and Romans departed forcibly, baptized the Samaritans, and installed a garrison there in both great revolts. Briefly, of the Roman state of Davidic style. But in 603 CE, the last war between the Roman and Persia began. The Persians gradually occupied the eastern parts of the empire. In 613 CE, they took Damascus, and then later, with the Hebrew assistance, they occupied all of the Palestine. They took Aelia Capitolina in 614 CE and gave it to the Hebrews. But within the few years, they restored it to the Christians because it was easy to deal with the majority population with the Christian. In 622 CE, Roman Emperor Hercules turned the tide against Persia. In 629 CE, he recovered Palestine. Yeah, Arab Eurasian invasion. Talking about Prophet Muhammad. I'm not going to get into that. That's just a little piece. So, you know, Hebrews in Arabia, of course. Yeah, I already gave you the whole link. I'm just going to show you the pictures at this point. Limbia, Zimbabwe, Ethiopian Hebrew with the 6-pointed star, and all that stuff. Interesting. Those could not, were doomed. Yeah. The Khazar modern Jews, Khazaria, the Byzantium and all that. That's what they say. Yeah, it's a lot of converts and Gentiles in the land. Not much you can see, but you know, we're not going to we're going to skim through it. the modern Hebrews. Sheik of Palestine, village 18. Yeah, that's what they say. Some of them are dark skinned too. Yes. Yeah, Israelite. That's very similar, but it's kind of controversial because it's a mess right now over there. You know what I mean? It's really sad. They look similar to us, but it's a mess. That's a whole nother. I skip through it because it's controversial, but gun to the head and all that. Yeah, they on some BS. But the scholar is a black man. So yeah, this is it with the Canaan 7. I didn't want to go in depth, so we already know the history. Y'all got it in the chat. I did Canaan, but the next time, if I do another history, it'll be this right here. Talk about Pakistan, and right here, I'll do another piece on this sometime in August. I don't know what date, and I'll come with it. So yeah, we'll knock this down. Yeah. So with that, I just want to thank the ones that came through. I just provide the links that y'all can see, and this stream it just went over an hour. So yeah, because I got another stream like the next hour. So with that, I want to say peace to y'all, the ones that showed up. And for this information, y'all can watch this on the playback. So with that, I want to say shalom.